The season of Advent, leading up to Christmas, is a very busy one in our household. I think probably most of us, it's that way. My husband, in addition to his day job, is also a musician, among other things. So you can imagine that this season would be a full one for us. And by the time Christmas itself rolls around, we like to keep things chill. We want to spend time with loved ones, absolutely. But also, the best part for me is having all the Christmas decorations around and then holding down the couch like it would float away if we got up. So our week has included our fair share of watching movies and streaming shows. Has anyone else had a chance to watch some movies and shows this week? Good. For those of you who have still been running around doing Christmas things, hopefully you will still get a chance before New Year's Eve. I share this with you because over this last week, this has definitely informed my sermon preparation, which you will surely notice. So I would like to look at today's passage as if it were an episode of one of your favorite shows. And because we're jumping in a couple episodes into the series, we're going to need to pay close attention to the previouslys. So, previously in Luke, the birth of John the Baptist was foretold. We see Mary and Elizabeth greeting one another, and John, still in the womb, is leaping for joy. And then we hear Mary's song of praise, which is beautiful, yes, but also radically prophetic. She sings of how God is bringing down the powerful from their thrones, lifting up the lowly. God is filling the hungry with good things and sending the rich away empty. And then we see John the Baptist is born, and Zechariah has a prophecy to share as well. He has shown the mercy promised to our ancestors and has remembered his holy covenant, the oath that he swore to our ancestor Abraham. And then the birth of Jesus. And then the shepherds in the fields, angels, shocking. Shepherds terrified. And then the shepherds come to see the baby. So now we tune in for today's episode, and it is time in the normal traditions of young Jewish families for the naming of the child, for all of the typical things that happen at the temple. And it says, when the time came for their purification, according to the law of Moses, they brought him up to Jerusalem to present him to the Lord. And just like it says in their holy scriptures, they have the option of a pair of turtle doves or 2 young pigeons if you can't afford the turtle doves. Today's episode is where we meet a new character, Simeon. Simeon is an old man. He's righteous, he's devout, he grew up reading the Hebrew scriptures and longs for the day of the consolation of Israel, the restoration of Israel. And at some point in his life, it had been revealed to him by the Holy Spirit he would not see death before he had seen the Lord's Messiah. So we're in the temple, and Joseph and Mary have come in with their probably pigeons and their baby. I have to wonder if the pigeons were already passed or if they're in a cage. It's hard for me to imagine this scene very vividly with the whole pigeon situation. But we know that they have come in and they are holding the baby. Perhaps Mary is holding the baby. Perhaps Joseph has a cage with two crazy pigeons. And Simeon comes in. And it's time for him to serve in his role, in what is customary under the law. And he takes the baby Jesus into his arms. What an interesting and lovely moment. But now we cut to the backstory. The film looks a little bit grainy and the clothes are different. That's how you know that it's far in the past. Now we're in ancient Israel. Oops. We see Abraham looking up into the night sky. God is speaking to him, saying, "Count the stars if you can. This is how numerous your descendants will be." And then later, after Abraham has continued to be faithful to God, we see God speaking to him again. And God says, "By your offspring shall all the nations of the earth be blessed, because you have obeyed my voice." All the nations of the earth will be blessed because you have obeyed my voice. The film is still grainy, and the outfits are still very outdated, but we've gone a little bit into the future to Isaiah. And God says, "It is too light a thing that you should be my servant to raise up the tribes of Jacob and restore the survivors of Israel. I will give you a light to the nations, that my salvation shall reach to the ends of the earth." And also God says, "I bring near my deliverance. It is not far off, and my salvation will not tarry. I will put salvation in Zion, for Israel, my glory." And now we cut back to the present time with Simeon holding the baby Jesus in the temple. And Mary is there, and Joseph is there, and the pigeons are there. And now Simeon breaks out into this beautiful, poignant song where he's saying, "Master, you are dismissing your servant in peace, according to your word. For my eyes have seen your salvation, which you have prepared for all people, a light for revelation to the Gentiles, and for glory to your people Israel." This is a song that is a new song, but with some familiar words. Have you noticed that every time we get a new Christmas song, there's always all these different references to all the other Christmas songs that show up in it? This is kind of like that. It's a new song, but it has all of these words that will feel familiar from throughout Isaiah especially where he says, "My eyes have seen your salvation, which you prepared for all people." And this, which, if we're paying attention, the people who are, grabbing their popcorn right now might not notice this until much later in the story. But if we're paying close attention, we will see that already here, while Jesus is a baby, Simeon is saying that this salvation is a light for revelation to the Gentiles. We know this. This seems like old hat to us. But maybe we don't always notice it. Right here in the Christmas story, the Gentiles, all the people, have been in God's mind since Abraham, since Isaiah, since Simeon praying over the baby Jesus. A light for revelation to the Gentiles and for glory to your people Israel. All throughout history, the people of God have been longing for the restoration of Israel. That is perhaps what is most prevalent on their hearts. But also we see this theme that goes throughout the whole Bible, that it is always for the purpose of blessing, for the revelation to the Gentiles. Gentiles just means not Jewish. I don't know if anybody in here grew up as a Jew. I did not. So when I see Gentiles, my thought is always, oh, that's me. This is where I come into the story. This is all of us. We have been considered in the story from the time of Isaiah, even all the way back to Abraham, when he's counting stars and the sand on the seashore. And this scene ends with, "And the child's father and mother were amazed at what was being said about Jesus." So the new character on this episode is Simeon. But there's something that's happening behind the scenes. We've gone back to an old familiar character, Abraham, old familiar character, Isaiah. But there is a character that is not on the screen, not on the main stage, but that is working behind the scenes throughout our whole story, and it is God. He is thinking of all of us. He is thinking of Israel. He is thinking of all of us Gentiles. The light and the blessing will go through the Jewish people, but then to the ends of the earth. And if Gentile is an unfamiliar word for you, then it will be quite clear in the verse before, verse 31, when Simeon says, all people, that one's not hard to understand, is it? That includes, well, all people. From the beginning, God has been working behind the scenes for all people. And I think even today, God continues to work behind the scenes. Even when the thing that we're seeing in front of us, there may be a new character coming into the story. There may be an old familiar character coming into the story. But we have to be aware that behind the scenes is that character that is there from the beginning, working behind the scenes. That it would be a light, a revelation to all people. Oh my goodness, that is a lot of work to be doing behind the scenes. All people? And I think of Joseph and Mary in this scene, and they're amazed. There is this incredible thing happening before them. And it's pretty obvious to them that God is doing something huge. But when you look at Simeon, oh my goodness, he is an old man. He has had this awareness for years and years and years. And he has been serving God faithfully that whole time. And just like in TV, those parts of faithfulness over the long haul don't usually show up. And if they do, say someone is training for a race, studying for a big test, what do we usually get? A montage. Over the course of one song, maybe two people fall in love, or maybe they have a family and then grow old. So I would imagine that Simeon's life of faithfulness, if it were to be presented on screen, would probably be in a montage. Sometimes when I'm cleaning the house or studying for a test, I have this thought, I need a montage. If we could just have one song, and then, by the end of the song, it would show me studying in different rooms of the house, and maybe I would be tired, and sometimes I would have coffee, and then the books would pile up high, and by the end of the song, I'd be ready for the test. But in actuality, it doesn't really all happen in one song, does it? And it's not as inspiring in the moment. And yet, in the everyday, in the moment-by-moment faithfulness, when we haven't had enough sleep, when someone is getting on our nerves, when the computer's not working, and there's a weird smell in the kitchen, and we just have to do the thing that we have to do, God is still at work behind the scenes. A light of revelation to the Gentiles. Salvation prepared for all people. I think that maybe if we could see more of what was happening behind the scenes, maybe I at least wouldn't have that thought so often of, oh my goodness, I need a montage. Can we skip ahead from this part? Because it doesn't seem like there's a lot happening in this moment. It doesn't seem like there's anything amazing or wonderful happening in this moment, but there is, because God is at work behind the scenes.